do you think it's possible to make enough money selling NFTs, owning NFTs, garlic NFTs that is, to own a Lamborghini?
I mean, I actually do think it's possible.
What about 2 Lamborghinis?
I mean, it's all a question of how deep you go into the game. I mean, it's just like
the game of
else.
marketing, that is. So I think the Lamborghini's a little too quick. I think we'd be blowing our wad by showing our 2 Lamborghinis that we got with NFTs, garlic NFTs, that is. So we might have to.
You will see Lamborghinis at Valhalla.
Painted garlic NFT.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the marketing of the NFT is such an important thing, and using the cars to market the NFTs and to get it out there in a game. Because what do people want most in life? They want things like that.
Well,
and if you brand that,
what I think they want most in life is they want something that they can invest in that they believe is going to go up in value without having to do any work. That's essentially the best investment you can ever make, right? Like, I want to buy a share of Tesla. I want the value of Tesla to go up, and I want to do no work for it.
And Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
That's exactly what a Lamborghini symbolizes.
Yeah, that's a Lamborghini.
Kind of.
I sold stock. I owned IBM back in the 80s before the World War, and they did the thing with the tattoo. 1880s.
Yeah. So, but, you know, I think people want a way to earn wealth, and I say earn, to accumulate wealth is the better word, without doing any of the work. And so NFTs and NFTs that actually relate to a physical thing that, you know, can speak to something you're actually passionate about or you actually care about, I think has an enormous amount of value. And, you know, it's no shock that somehow the NFT video and the reel that we made on Instagram is the one that performed the best out of all the reels that we made of all the podcast episodes this season.
Well, I think because it hits on that selfish note of why someone would ever want to watch a video on their phone. It has to appeal to them. And that appeals to them. Like, hey, buddy, you want to make money now? That's 90% of the videos. It's porn. There's porn. And then there's the guy pitching you the easy money.
Yeah. Well, I think I think the other thing is it's just a novel idea. It's just something that's different. Like,
and
you heard of NFTs and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. And you saw the market blow up and you're like,
I'm sure there's still a guy out there that has a purple kitten for sale for $13,000.
Oh, 100%. There's definitely people.
Thousands of them.
Oh, there are thousands of people. I mean, think about it. Most NFT projects came out with like 10,000 units. And people bought up every possible NFT you could think of. I mean, it was like...
Well, they believed in the roadmap. There was a roadmap.
Remember, it was the pet rock, the rock one? There was like a...
This went for everything.
Yeah, there was like a 16-bit or 8-bit rock or whatever it was or whatever. And then, you know, people bought NFTs for every single reason. Crypto punks. You had, the bored apes. The bored apes. Yeah, exactly. Those
I think even those ones, they ran away with the bag.
But that's the whole point.
If you think that you own a gorilla or some sort of steampunk and it's going to make money, it already made money and you're holding the bag.
No, 1,000%.
Holding the empty bag, by the way.
Yeah.
They left with the stuff.
Now, if you
bag.
were early...
No, there's a PNG in that bag, bro. you traded it for a sack of money.
Forget PNG, it's JPEG. Low quality.
Well, yeah, because they screenshot it.
It was the biggest scam ever. And I love that they ruined NFT in a sense because everyone thinks it's a scam, but if it's a digital contract and the garlic can present that as such and it can win, then we can expand on that idea. And I think that NFTrees is one of your greatest ideas.
100%.
And that's, have you sequestered carbon today?
Yeah.
Excuse me, have you sequestered your carbon today?
Are you paying your carbon taxes that are rising in Canada every minute? It's like, no, I mean, like real carbon taxes.
Do you want to tell your friends that you are sequestering carbon and... on your way to earning a Lamborghini?
Yeah, but imagine. So let's talk about NFTrees for a second, because I think that this idea goes in. There's two things that I think appeal to. Well, there's three things I think appeal to why somebody might want to buy this. One, they just want to support. They just want to support the farm. They want to support something. They want to see a tree planted. People donate. I mean, look at Mr. Beast. He planted $20 million worth of trees. He made a massive campaign out of it. Blah 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 blah. So people want to support and they want to do good, quote unquote. Okay.
What are these trees doing?
They're just sequestering carbon.
Okay, so he did the carbon thing.
But he didn't give them the carbon credit.
Oh.
Okay, so he just did a fundraiser for trees and then for plastics in the ocean. That's what he did. Now, that's a great idea. Very interesting. You use your leverage, you use your influence to make something happen. Cool. Doing good has an appeal, right?
They paid him.
Yeah, they paid, and then the money went to a foundation, and they plant the trees, and then, right? The second thing that I think is very appealing is, what if the trees produce something? Like if they were all apple trees or pear trees or whatever, and you buy the NF tree for apples, and now you can come to the farm, and because you hold one of these apples, you can consume as many apples as you want on site. Meaning, and you could like just go to the trees and pick the apples, or take a little basket and bring it home, make a pie, or do whatever it is.
You might even start your own cider.
Yeah. Now, imagine, though, you're getting access to trees that are already mature by planting young trees. So you're paying a smaller fee for a young tree that's eventually going to grow, but it's going to take 10 years or 8 years or whatever it is before it starts fruiting. But you're getting the fruits that are already abundant on the property today.
Could I go on my Tinder profile and write that I'm an apple farmer today?
I mean, so that's the next stage. My third thought is that by having a digital contract that says you own the tree, in the same way that you have a contract that says you own a house or a condo, it's no different of a contract. You could say that you are the holder of this tree, or the owner of this tree, therefore you get the benefits of ownership of the tree. Now, benefits could include picking apples off the tree, but rather than focusing on one tree, by having multiple of those trees available, you're getting, if one tree is outperforming the other or whatever it is, you're getting a kind of a share of the whole collective pot. So you can eat as many apples as you want, but then you can also say, this tree is this years old. In the lifetime of this tree, or every year it sequesters this much carbon, and I'm paying carbon taxes, and everyone's paying carbon taxes on gas now. I'm going to take my carbon credit and apply it against those taxes and get it back when I file my.
You're thinking like a tax lawyer. Nobody thinks like that.
Well,
it's
people
do.
People
Will
do.
it help the Tinder profile? That's what we want to
That's
know.
what we want to know.
Okay, so let's get to that in a second. Okay,
In a second.
in a second.
Good.
Companies want on their LinkedIn profile.
Oh, it's like
Companies want exactly. It's Tinder. LinkedIn is like the Tinder of corporations.
Okay.
Hot take
now
over here.
Now we're getting to the juice.
They're head
We're
on
juice. Okay.
Yeah.
We're
So
listening.
so LinkedIn is the Tinder of corporations. They want to show corporate wellness. Right? They have programs like when you buy a plane ticket today, they have programs that say, hey, do you want to sequester the carbon of your flight? And they have an extra option. You pay like $40 more, and you sequester the carbon of that flight by some random company.
A fucking idiot
planting
tax.
trees. Well, I mean, idiot tax. Some people think that it's a good way.
Hey, you want to give me $40 right now?
It's a good way of donating on a checkout that they're willing to donate to.
They used to ask you
specifically
for,
if you're using corporate
They
cards.
used to ask for $1 for starving children. They're asking you for $40 for.
Well,
carbon.
they're asking based on your carbon tax credit, the carbon, the estimated carbon of your trip.
the guilt tax.
What? It's a guilt tax. It's a guilt tax. Yes, it's a guilt tax. So, but for now, it is a voluntary donation. In the future, as we both know, and as already is happening in Canada specifically, carbon taxes on fuel are already happening. It went up on April 1st. It went up on July 1st. And, currently, or I think it was last year, the carbon ton is $50 Canadian per carbon ton. By 2030, they're expecting to get it up to $170 a carbon ton.
This is
That starts
insurance. This is insurance on steroids right now.
It
Where
is-
insurance markets your fear, this is marketing your guilt.
This is marketing guilt. Yes.
Oh my God, they're gonna have that for everything.
So imagine a way
it'll
that
be your
somebody,
Tinder.
no, but imagine a way that somebody can gain those credits. But if they live in a condo, where are they going to plant the tree? They have no capacity to have credits. They don't own land. Where are they going to public?
Then they can't eat burgers. What's going on?
Well, sure. It will end up at you've
No
been
hot
using
water
too many
for
carbon.
you.
Yeah, you've been using too many carbon credits. You as a citizen have this many a year that you can use. You're hitting your limit, or you've passed your limit. Guess what?
It's getting a little dark right now.
Well, I mean, I believe that it's going to head in that direction. It's going to head in that direction. There's no way it doesn't.
Well, this is the whole thing. That by becoming a farmer, you could tell everyone you're a farmer. It's like saying you're a trucker during the trucker protest, but
Yes. And that's a good.
but you're
Tinder
more
profile.
desirable. Let's be real. On Tinder, who's more desirable, the trucker or the farmer?
Well, that's debatable.
The farmer's hot right now. He's hot right now.
I think
I
the
don't know,
farmer
bro.
is going to be a lot of people's best friends as the price of food is rising. Period. Trucking is, first of all, trucking is going to be replaced by robots. Robots are going to run. Tesla is going to take over that market. There's going to be self-driving trucks that are driving your Pepsi or Frito-Lay
But will
all
they
the way around the
protest
world.
on Parliament?
Possibly.
The Teslas?
Yeah. Well, this
Will they
goes
stand up
back
for our freedoms?
Well,
Tesla?
it actually kind of goes back to the question that I asked JM. I said, when are you a farmer? When does being a farmer start and end? And when we asked the question of, if you own a tractor, let's say the farmer next door who farms corn and soya, if he owns a tractor and the tractor drives itself and he has a GPS tracking system and it just goes up and down the field harvesting or planting or doing whatever, and he's not in it, is he a farmer?
Yes.
Weirdly.
And everyone who helped finance his tractor should be a farmer too. It should be the Dutch, what we saw happen after the trucker, ironically.
Yes.
And then the Dutch did their farmer thing.
Yeah, which is still going on.
And because they have such a high population of farmers and it makes sense to them, they're able to stand up. If everyone was a farmer and pushed other people to become farmers, we would have that unified.
Yes. Now, the problem is that in Canada...
Then your Tinder would be great, bro.
But it's so strange to think, but that's one of the things that they're going to attack and are attacking is farming.
Yes.
It's the crazy, you'd think it would never happen, but here we are. And
it's definitely happening.
And by people saying they're farmers, they're taking a stand and they're helping.
I think that there's going to be a lot of people who say and want to join farming in some way, shape, or form, either physically by literally buying a piece of land and doing it, or emotionally, kind of like the many people who wanted to support the farmers in the Netherlands.
Because you're sold out. The garlic NFTs are sold out.
Sold out.
Sold out. We have to come up with new NFTs.
Well, absolutely. So I think this is, this is a
There's
conversation.
people knocking at the door right now. They want to buy the NFTs.
I had people literally knocking on our Instagram DMs saying, "I'm from Florida. I make black garlic. Can I buy garlic NFTs?" And I'm like, "Oh, sorry, they're sold out at the moment, but we'll talk about the 2023 season into 2024." But so people were asking me about buying garlic from a pre-production, because if you own a restaurant or you own, a supply chain, you need a supply chain. You want really good garlic. Most garlic that a guy from Florida can't grow it in Florida because it's not the right conditions for it. But they make black garlic in Florida. Now, that's a big market. That's, a high value add from garlic to this other state. Where do they source it? Well, China's the biggest grower of garlic, Spain second, and kind of northern US, southern Quebec or southern Canada is a perfect range for growing garlic. So we have an opportunity to kind of create a product that is used around the world that most other producers, I wouldn't say Spain has a decent reputation, but China has a horrible reputation when it comes specifically to garlic. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of people who would be interested in something like that. And the proof is every time I talk about it, it goes viral. Like, it just constantly is getting a lot of people excited about it because I believe, again, that the ideas sound, but it's also novel. Like, it's the perfect... Mm-hmm. It's the perfect balance of those different things. Now, go a step further. Think, strawberries. Well, NFTrees, strawberries, blueberry NFTs, or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So, some kind of bush that we would plant an enormous amount of, let's say 400 or 1,000 or 10,000, I don't know, right? So you have hundreds of fruit trees, thousands of berry bushes, hundreds, or maybe tens of thousands of strawberries. You plant those things and you say, hey, by owning this NFT, you have the right to come to the farm and eat as many of the freaking strawberries as you want. And we would plant early season strawberries, mid-season strawberries, late season strawberries. So we would have this abundance that is naturally coming out of the farm, but we're removing from the farm's perspective the cost of going and trying to commercialize it. Meaning we're only trying to commercialize it by hoping that the plant produces the thing, that it's perfect, that it looks perfect, that it goes right into the perfect dish and the perfect thing, and half of it is being wasted, half of it is being lost to bugs or this or that or whatever. Now, in this scenario, you removed all the cost, all the shipping, I have to package it and put it in a thing or plastic or a cardboard or whatever the hell and ship it to some place. This is bringing the market to you. Mm-hmm. So it's way more cost effective. It's money up front for the production. And as long as you had an established production day one, somebody can buy the NFT and tomorrow show up. That's a fucking win, right? Think about it this way. Hey, you have two choices. Hey, you came for our U-pick? Hey, for $20, you can go out in the field and pick as many, you can fill up this basket and you pay $20. But for $50, you can buy a strawberry NFT. You can take the basket and pick as much as you want. But you can come back next week and do the same thing. You can come back next year and do the same thing. Would you rather pay $50 or would you rather pay $20?
It's more than $50.
Sure. But you get what understand what I'm trying to say?
Do you want to stake in the thing that you like?
Exactly.
Do you want to be a short-term thinker and keep gaining at the low end, or do you want to invest in the thing that you like?
Well, now imagine you bought this garlic NFT in 2023, 2024, and now it's 2030.
Now I have a Lamborghini.
right? Well, now, well, no, but now it's 2030, and the prices of food have risen over time, even if it's normal, quote unquote, inflation, which we would call devaluation. Mm-hmm. Even in those normal, quote unquote, conditions, the price of strawberries will have gone up that you would have made return just on holding,
of course,
asset. So to me, it's a perfect story. It helps the farmer get it in the ground. It gives access to something right away. It literally bears fruit, and it has financial incentive, and you can sell it at any fucking point. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to sell it just in Valhalla's NFT marketplace or whatever it is. You can sell it on OpenSea. You can sell it wherever you want. And anyone who has a wallet that can, use Polygon or Ethereum or whatever it is, sell it. So you could sell it to any single person all around the world. Now, obviously, people who live in Montreal have better benefits, coming to that thing. But on the tree side or on the carbon sequestering side, that could be anyone. Hey, here's the carbon dated. We know when this tree was planted. Mm-hmm. This exact tree, when you bought the NFT, was planted within X period of time, and this is how old the tree is. Therefore, we can estimate how much carbon it's sequestering, and it's all trackable.
I just think it's a great way to help us out, invest in Valhalla, and later on, someone else will buy your investment, and you'll make money on your investment.
And you will literally eat and enjoy the fruits of it in the entire way. So
I think it's called a win-win.
Well, I'd say it's a win-win-win. It's win for the farmer, it's win for the farm, and it's win for the person. But I think it's really helpful also to just the entire market of rethinking the way that we would invest in food. Like, most people who are trying to invest in food from a long-term perspective are preppers. They're like, oh, let me hoard a bunch of stuff and the prices are going to go up. Nah. Like, even today, I literally wrote to my stockbroker and I said, hey, I think we should buy wheat futures because Russia shut down the deal with the Ukraine for exporting the wheat, right? And sunflower and everything else out of the Black Sea. I know that wheat prices are going to go up. Now, if I had the ability today to buy a wheat NFT or to buy a small stake in a farmer who's farming wheat in Canada, I would do that. But I don't have that ability. So sure, I can go to the stock market and buy it that way. I can also go to the stock market and buy garlic futures, or I can buy oil futures, whatever other thing. But now all of a sudden, everything I'm doing is in the game. It's in the matrix. Everything is taxed in a particular way. Where with a garlic NFT, there are these hidden benefits that, if I go and collect strawberries or I go and eat the garlic, am I really being taxed on that? Like, am I really going to gain? Like, who's going to, who's counting how much garlic I had and who's tracking how much garlic we grew? So there's an interesting gray zone. Not that I'm suggesting that you do this, CRA. But I think there's a gray zone where there's grace and there's value to be had in that alone. Mm-hmm. And so it's, back to the goodwill. I think a lot of people will buy it out of goodwill, supporting us as a farm and other farmers too, because I want to know that I was one and we were one of the first people to ever come up with the idea, but I want other farmers to do this. Well, I truly believe it's
I think it's a stepping stone to get someone into farming.
Yes.
That's
another way of doing it too.
Because you might not have land, you might not have 100 fruit trees, but you might like fruit trees, and by buying one, you have access to more, and that's how you get your foot in the door and
exactly.
You become
And one of the ways that we're trying to imply that people participate is like, hey, you bought the garlic row, but if you come and help us plant it, I'll give you the money back for the labor that you did in the end. So if you want access to land, but you don't have the money to afford land, where the average farm is, I think the average farm in Quebec costs $3 million to buy today.
Wow.
That's what it costs. No, but the average size farm with the average buildings on it.
You could probably farm on a quarter acre, though.
Yes, but where do you find a quarter acre? That's the whole problem. There's so few big
house in fucking
Sure, you can farm in the backyard. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
You're talking about commercial.
I'm talking about the ability to do commercial farmland where you would have a registered farm number and all the things and have all the rights. The average farm to buy in Quebec is about $3 million today.
How many Lamborghinis is that?
That's multiple Lamborghinis depending on what model you buy.
Four Lamborghinis?
Oh, more
you know how many fucking NFTs I'm gonna have that for this?
Yeah,
but are you factoring insurance? We're factoring come on.
Well, no, sure, but I mean, okay, those are expensive Lamborghinis, but some are that expensive.
To say you're a farmer, to go on Tinder and to say I'm a farmer, I gotta pay $3 million.
That would be the average price if you were currently buying a farm in Quebec.
Is there tax on that $3 million?
Well, definitely. The person who's selling it pays tax, and then when
if
you
someone
sell it,
else
you pay
owns
tax.
the farm and you farm on the land,
Are you a farmer?
are you a farmer on Tinder?
Yes, 100%.
So
So here's the thing:
NFTs.
you don't need to own the farm, and you also don't need to necessarily sign your life away on a lease by having an NFT that you could sell at any moment. You could sell halfway through the season. So if, let's say garlic futures or the price of garlic skyrockets like it did in during the pandemic, you could literally exit weeks later with a higher valuation than what you bought originally. And you don't necessarily have to do any of the work because you're supporting either the local farmer who is doing the work and the team of people who work at the farm, or you can get involved if you want to get involved. So it's like it really allows you to get into the game with whatever level of involvement or engagement you want to have.
would they be able to buy a plot of land?
So my
Rows
vision
with nothing.
Yes, my vision is that I would provide, and I already have a financial kind of model for this, what we call blocks. So the blocks are, if you, Jam was literally just here, Jean-Martin Fortier, very well-known farmer, market gardener. Long story short, a block is 10 beds of 100 feet long by 30 inches wide. So those are like standard farm beds if you were thinking about regenerative or market gardening farming. I would want to create those beds, get them operational through garlic, meaning get them running through garlic, do the amendments, do the work, get the soil to a certain state away from what we have, which is a very clay, into a state that is a better state. And then the second the garlic is rotated out, yeah, sure, why not? You want to be a market gardener that has 10 rows, here's a block, here's what it costs, and now you can own that. Now, the way I see it is the block could be a fixed block where you stay on the same 10 beds and you rotate yourself. Or if you're buying, let's say there was 10 blocks of 10 beds, so now you have 10 different owners, you can also have a system of rotation based on what they like to grow. Mm-hmm. So if one person is a carrot guy or the other person is a potato person or this person or that person, you can rotate based on the natural cycles of rotation and still own those beds, but you don't have to necessarily be fixed to your beds if you don't want to be. So, look, this idea is very novel in the sense that I don't know how well it's going to work. What I know is that nobody I know, and almost nobody, period, has enough money to get into farming or has enough money to buy a farm, let alone start from scratch. And to start with no other farmers nearby, no knowledge, no nothing. I mean, fine, you can take an online course like JM's, or you can do an intensive. You can work on a farm for 2 years, 3 years, whatever, gain that experience. But that's such a small percentage of population that's going to do that compared to what I think we're offering or what we're trying to offer and trying to put out. That would make way more sense.
Yeah, allow them to buy a piece of the land and have it appreciate, and as it appreciates, they get a piece of that too.
But that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So by owning the tree, if the value of apples starts to skyrocket, then you win with that. If the price of garlic starts to skyrocket, same thing. But at least you can play that game at whatever temperature you want. And unlike farmland, the other thing, the way that farmland works is you buy two pieces of farmland under the same name, even if you bought them separately, the second they are touching, you can never separate them again.
Really?
Yes, it's called contigu in French. Okay, that's the term for it. I don't know what the English translation for contigu is, but it's like contiguous. It's contiguous is the English word. So so
if someone buys a swash, it becomes one, and it
becomes one as long as they're touching,
and it can no longer be subdivided.
There's now new laws where you have to ask for permission, where you might be able to subdivide if you are selling to a neighboring farmer. If I wanted to buy just a piece of the land next door, rather than the entire piece of land,
that's how I got the 3 million.
Well, yes, that's partially it, because all the farmers had to buy more and more land to farm corn, soya, or whatever, wheat, whatever, hay. So they had to buy mass amounts of land. They tended to buy the farm right next door, and right next door, and right next door. And now they cannot sell a piece of the farm without selling the whole farm. So, but unlike with the NFTs, I could buy 100 trees tomorrow and sell 20 of them the next day, or in 5 years, or in whatever. So I can play at whatever scale I want to play. Meaning I don't have to, and that scale can start at a few dollars for an NFT all the way to thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars if you really want to go that far. But that scale isn't accessible to normal everyday people or in the traditional system.
How much would you charge for an NF tree? One tree, standard tree. Talking about maple, perhaps, maybe an oak.
Well, okay, so I think there's different things. I think there's a different value to a fruit tree than there would be to a normal tree.
I'm talking about fruit tree. I'm not talking about fruit tree.
Yeah.
Oak. It might even be an ash tree. I'm not even sure. Which one's yours. How much does that cost?
How old is it?
Oh, it's standard.
Standard.
Could be 10. Could be 10 years old.
10 years? I mean, look, to buy a 10-year-old tree today, you probably pay a couple $100 just to buy the tree at a garden center. So it'd have to be that plus some because of two reasons. One, we need to plant the tree. Two, we need to maintain it. And I'm not saying maintain as in like just cut the branches of certain things, but we have to cut the grass around it. We have to maintain the land. There's cost to having the tree on the land. So
I think if they're buying a maple tree or something like that, they're not looking to farm. They're looking to help us.
Yes. So the way I see it is, it would be what I would
one time.
Yeah, something like that. It'd be like $500. $250, let's say, would be the actual cost of the tree. If it was a 10-year-old tree, I'd probably plant smaller, to be honest. It would be easier and be cheaper. And it will grow into the major tree anyway. But what I would do is mainly set up a proper system for drip irrigation or other systems of irrigation that would maintain the tree really well. I'd also want to like maybe get goats that are going to roam that tree area or pigs that are going to roam that area that would fertilize the soil on a rotational basis. Year after year, you could change the animal, you could change what's going on. So I'd want to factor in those costs or those elements so that the tree is in its best possible state.
What I like about those older trees is that we actually have acreage of forest
100%
that has those trees.
Half our land is roughly forest.
And part of the buying the NFT could go to processing it into 4x4s, even all the way just to firewood.
Sure.
Wouldn't it be awesome to see cords of wood at the land and know that your NFT paid for that?
I mean, that's one way of seeing it. Specifically, if we're replacing or we're planting more trees than we're cutting down, or
it's
in our
important
case,
to thin the forest so that your big trees become big trees and you don't have constantly thin trees falling over.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that like look at the ash trees. Look at the ash trees in Montreal in the whole area, right? Every ash tree basically on our entire property, let alone all the ash trees in the entire province and probably the whole region, died because of a beetle or some kind of infestation.
Ash borer beetle.
Yeah, exactly. So when that happens, that tree then turns into firewood, and that firewood has value.
But the
it
processing
can also turn
of
into a mildwood or whatever.
The processing of that takes time, and if we could have the support with the garlic, with the NFTrees, then we could pay people, incentivize people to do the stewardship of the woods, and that would lead to a much better, a beautiful place for when people come. The members, when they come, if they saw a woods that was taken care of and people were going to clear spots,
well,
it'd be amazing.
So in if I were to do quote unquote regular trees, meaning non-fruit trees, I would do maple. Only because I think, number one, that's something we're very well known for in Canada. But two, the second we have a certain number of maple on the property, we can set up a sugar shack.
Okay, but I would also push for the birch.
Oh, sure.
Pine,
I'm not saying
oak, just to make it be a balance.
We would want a diverse ecosystem, no doubt. But what I'm trying to say is that what I would do is start with getting a certain amount of maple trees, and then I would, once a certain amount of trees are, because we don't want to plant 1,000 different trees all sourced at 1,000 different places at the same time, right? If I can buy 100 maple trees all at once, I'm going to get a better deal than if I'm buying them individually every time somebody buys one, right? So I'd want to do a run on maple trees one year, next year pine, next year birch, next year this. I'd kind of approach it from that perspective probably. And I'd want to source from, like a pépinière ancestrale, like an ancestral
support someone local,
support a local source,
get the local genetics,
which is supporting another farmer. Yeah. So 100% of the money would now go minus let's say the travel of wherever it's coming from and wherever it's being planted, as well as the labor of physically planting it and any of the amendments we need to add. All the money would basically be going to farmers, and it would be planting trees on farmland or in farm forests, managing that forest and changing that forest. Without in any way, shape, or form disrupting it, or you're not putting in an invasive. Exactly, you're not putting an invasive species. You're putting a species that's already growing there, but doing it in a way that that just supports the forest. And it wouldn't be like rows of maple trees. That's not how I would do it anyway. But with fruit trees, I would
at
approach
Valhalla,
it
where we are. The ground is trying to work its way towards a pine forest, which is oaks and maples, and pines and spruce. So we'd be helping in that. And I think that the garlic NFT was so helpful for you to expand in garlic, and you sold out, that there's a big need for it to be expanded into other things besides garlic, because garlic can only move at the rhythm that you can move, and then you can plant it.
Yes.
But other things are moving at the farm and need that kind of help as well. And it'd be cool to see NFTs created for those things as well.
Yeah, and I'll explain why I started with garlic, which is garlic was the first product that I realized I had all season long to prepare for. Meaning we don't have enough equipment, tractors, certain things to be able to mobilize very quickly in April. Mm-hmm. And the fields are muddy, and we didn't even have a road, and we didn't have a bunch of stuff. But this was a way of restoring the soil, building those garden beds, JMF, Jean-Martin Forcier style, Margaret Gardner style, and then rotating out so that other farmers can follow what the garlic is doing. And so I feel like this was a way of taking this 19-acre field that we had that for the longest time was, well, GMO corn and soya before we bought it, and even after we bought it for a long period of time, and then transforming that from then eventually hay and different things into actual garden beds that can produce other things. But once that stage is done, and next year we're done. Next year we've gone to the point where all the beds that I plan on making are made in terms of market gardening beds.
And then we have to expand. And what about pig NFT? Have you given this any thought?
That was the other one I wanted to talk to you about. So pig NFTs, chicken NFTs. You know, a lot of people want access to eggs.
What's their return? What's their return on the NFT for the pig?
So they buy the pig at upfront.
Yeah.
They're paying for the actual purchasing of the pig. They're paying for the caring of the pig.
Let's say it's $1,500.
Sure.
First.
So something like, or $1,000, whatever it is. I don't know, whatever the price is. You're paying for all the food that pig is going to eat up front. At the end of the season, you have the opportunity
to butcher
and have your own pig.
If not,
or take it, or just we grow it for you and you take it, or we keep it. If you want us to keep it, we'll keep it. But then you have to keep paying for it. So there will be an ongoing cost at that point. Mm-hmm. But that gives people an opportunity into those different markets.
It's just a contract that says it's your fucking pig. That's all.
No, same with chickens laying eggs. You know, look at the price of eggs. We used to sell our eggs, and this was a higher end. We're not organic because they're not certified organic, but they're fed organic and they're all natural. So say what you want with that. All natural eggs, fully actually free range. I mean, we have a fence around it because if a fox comes, it's destruction. But I mean, they're real free range and they move. The price of a carton of eggs we used to sell for $5 2 years ago. Then last year $7. This year $8. So, if you had bought chicken NFTs when we had done that at $5, you would be laughing today because the value of that has skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. So, and then the other thing is there's a limit to how many we as a farm can provide. Like technically, legally, we're only allowed 99 chickens on the farm on one side of the street and 99 chickens on the other side of the street because they're separate farms, technically. Now, we could go and get a quota and blah, 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 but then we're restricted by a bunch of other stuff, and the way that the laws work in Quebec doesn't make any sense to me. How a 19-acre field with a massive forest can only have 99 chickens makes no sense to me. But that's the limit. So do you think we'll sell out on our eggs, our chicken NFTs, when we would basically pre-sell every egg that would come out? Mm-hmm. Now, back to, well, what if I don't eat that many eggs? Not a problem. We have two options. You keep the eggs, or two, we sell it for you, and then we give you a percentage back on the sales because we estimate how many eggs the whole flock is making, and then we give you a return, every 3 months or at the end of the season. So now you went from I never even fed a chicken, I never even took care of a chicken, to I have farm revenue, which has massive implications for you to buy farmland and to develop on farmland, put a greenhouse on it, or build a, when
I go to the grocery stores, I don't get returns when I buy eggs.
No, exactly. You only have a cost. So in this scenario, you're buying a supply chain that you believe in, right? You're an egg that you want to eat, and you're buying a potential return. And so it's like a pre-purchase, and I can't say the word invest because that's not what you're doing, but it is what you're doing. Okay.
I mean, it's like the nuts and bolts of the economy.
Yes.
You
buy something that will be worth more later.
And you give it to the guy who will take the money and do the thing. You.
Exactly. If I made if you came out to me and you said, hey, can you make me custom shoes? And I took your money and I went back and then made custom shoes.
It's almost like what if the customer was also the shareholder?
Well, that's the way I see it. And then certain
That's a customer
NFTs
for real.
And the way I see it is certain NFTs can only be purchased by previous NFT owners, at least at first. So the first wave, like if you didn't have a garlic NFT, and then we come out with strawberry NFTs, the strawberry NFTs will be first given to the people who invested in the garlic NFTs first as a right of first refusal.
Yeah, for sure.
So then now all of a sudden you can scale into the entire diversity of the farm without, again, having to be at the farm every single day. Right? Without having to manage every single one of those things or having to be an expert in every single one of those things. And so I believe other members of our farm will buy, like, oh, Hugo can only produce X amount of mushrooms. I want, 1/100th or 1/20th of the mushrooms that he produces. Let me buy 1/20th of his mushroom production today. So, but the money that comes to Hugo or to somebody to do that would be so freaking valuable up front, because the hardest part of scaling and farming is you don't have money. You don't, and then like in garlic, you only harvest once a year. You only have one cash crop. Fine, you can make pesto with the scapes or whatever, sure, but like and everything is dependent on the harvest. Whereas now this is money up front that allows you to kind of, it's almost like an insurance policy. There's so many reasons why this makes so much sense for farmers. Like there's so many reasons why it makes sense for
It's
farmers.
a loan
and
where
for
the
consumers.
interest is actually given to the
interest is given back to the consumer.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's more of a link between producer and consumer directly. Whereas like, look, you go to a grocery store, you buy something, you could read the label that says made in Mexico or made in Quebec.
But you're
you still don't know.
supporting that company when you buy the thing. It's just that they don't give a fuck about
You're
you.
supporting that company, but most of the money was made by the grocery store.
Sure, but nobody's getting you in on the...
And they don't care.
No one's getting you
And
in
they
on the
don't care.
slice. They're just
Exactly.
constantly like, thanks for the money, get out.
Yeah.
And they'll sell to you
Exactly.
every single day or every single week, and they'll
They
still
don't
never
care.
cut you in.
They'll never cut you in. They'll never cut you in on the thing. And because of that, we have to go back to it's like a, the
Grassroots.
experiments. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
very grassroots where, hey, this is a win-win-win. I'm going to cut you in. Let's go.
Exactly.
You want to have raw milk even though it's illegal? Well, you better be a farmer.
No comment.
You better be a farmer, bro. Because only farmers have raw milk.
I like how we're calling NFTs going back to grassroots.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is hilarious. Yeah, I mean,
We got to get back to basics. NFTs. On open
Put it in your
source.
wallet.
Selling you a PNG.
Polygon. Yeah.
But I mean, it's a representation
Well
because
said,
if the
Leo.
gas fees are way too high, it's like the NFT ain't going through the fucking OpenSea marketplace.
No.
But you still get the thing.
But that's why you
that
have
deal was
Polygon
probably still a
or-
handshake.
There's a million things that will keep the gas fee super low. I mean, we're talking pennies to mint an NFT.
Okay, perfect.
And here's the other thing. I can mint it for you and just airdrop you it.
Well, that's the thing.
Which is
It's
what
just-
I'm going to do.
It's just a
Which I'm
symbol
gonna
of.
do. Yeah.
It's a receipt.
Yes. It's a
Yeah.
contract.
It's a cooler
It's an
receipt.
actual contract in like legal in Canada, legal in it's an actual contract that is sent to you that you sign and then you get the NFT as a symbol of that contract. It's just
It's a gamifying the contract because the
exactly.
contract's
It's just
boring,
a way.
it's full of words.
Imagine I had sent you a contract in the mail, and then you could just change the name on the contract, and then have that person sign. The second they sign, you ship that contract or that deed to them in the mail. It's the exact same thing, just done digitally. It's no different than the way you would buy a deed to a house or a condo or anything of that nature. It's the same. And instead of having a notary who validates, okay, yes, this person actually owns the thing, you have the blockchain that validates that, and that's how it does.
What do you think the people who got the steampunks? What do you think they had on the contract?
I mean, I don't think they had a contract. I think they had like a promise that, oh, if you buy this thing, you'll be part of an exclusive club, or we'll give you access to our Discord, and you'll be able to meet other people who bought these NFTs too, and blah 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 blah. And to some degree, that had value, right? Like if you think Bored Apes, someone like LeBron James bought one, or Steve Aoki brought one. So now, if you want access to those people, you might buy one to be able to like send them the DM or something like that. Okay.
Right. Hear me out. Is this not what they did? They sold some Bored Apes to some bored idiots.
Yes.
Took that money, probably 50%, gave it to LeBron and say, hey, LeBron, say you bought some. He bought some.
Yes,
Then
they
more
PR
idiots bought them.
yes, it's
and
a
then
hype
what
train.
did they do? They inflated it by making 3,000 at one point, or something like that.
Sure. They limit the supply. Everyone talks about it. Once you get if you're the talk of the internet and you're the talk of the Twitterverse, let's say, well then you're the perceived value rises, and then people buy in because they FOMO and a million other things. But most people At the end of the day, it's a giant Ponzi scheme.
Yes.
Because there's nothing that inherently gives it value other than the perception of the value. The difference between what we are talking about is that there's a physical thing that you can physically come and take and physically walk away with. So if you hate, the idea, or you're tired of it, you want to cash out by literally physically taking the garlic and go selling it at the grocery store or to a restaurant yourself, do it. Be my guest.
Mm-hmm. But you can also sell it.
You could just sell it without doing that and just sell to the next buyer or the next investor.
I'm sure you would buy it back too at this point. You're sold out. You would for sure buy it back.
Yes. That's the other thing. I have the market where it's like, hey, I know that I sold you at this price. I'll pay you the same amount of money or slightly more to buy it back. And then I can turn around and I know that I'm going to sell it for more later. That's part of flipping and that's part of the value.
The important part of the market.
Yes.
The important part of the market still be there milking it.
No, because you have a buyer. You have a buyer.
Just kept it cool.
Yes.
And kept it tight. And even then, it'd probably run its course because it's stupid and it's a fucking PNG. But the non-inflation is important to run an economy. And we're all going to learn that lesson this decade.
Well, I mean, inflation is already running amok and destroying us in many different ways. Again, if you had bought into farming and a crop and you knew that you could buy futures in 2020, early 2020, versus the prices of food today, you would have gotten your Lamborghini. So, if you somehow knew that it would be the case, then that's going to be valuable. Now, here's the thing. The average age of farmers in Quebec is 54. That's average, which means most people are above that, and a couple of people are below that, but that's the average age. So what's going to happen when less and less people know how to farm, more and more robotics are farming and doing certain things, but the price of robotics is not necessarily that much cheaper than labor. It's just more consistent than labor sometimes, right? Because they don't quit or they don't get stopped at the border or they don't, because a lot of them are migrants that come up seasonally from in Canada or whatever it is. Like there's a million reasons why a farm hiring people to do the thing rather than machine to do the thing, it has its downsides and also has its upsides. But the reality is that the availability of food and the price of food is going to continue to rise just for this one reason: carbon taxes. If carbon taxes and the way that you drive the tractor requires diesel or gas, and then you drive the truck that drives it to the store requires diesel and gas. And then the store needs more and more margin because all the people who work at the store also need to get to the store, which requires diesel and gas. Well, that's going to continue to rise the prices until maybe we're at the electrification of the entire, supply chain and the movement of things, goods and people. That being said, where does our electricity come from? What carbon costs does that have? Blah, 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 blah. The carbon thing is that if you're alive, you are basically consuming carbon. And so inherently, as carbon taxes go up, all prices go up. And so that's the reality we're going to live in.
I think they're just going to increase more taxes, and it's hard to get away from that one. But what you can do is decrease the things that you spend on. So by becoming a farmer, you're less dependent on the grocery store and their prices.
Yes,
the butter could be $10 and it won't matter because butter is actually free if you have the fucking
And by group pre-buying into a farm,
that's very important.
That's even cheaper. That is even better because not everyone, look, the average accountant isn't going to quit their job and go, grow garlic. But if they can buy in by using a portion of their wealth to do that, then that's a revolutionary idea. And that's exactly how I do it. I think about this every year. I think about what percentage of my money that I earn this year, through whatever means I earn it, am I going to put back into strawberries? And not strawberries like buying strawberries at a freaking grocery store, strawberry plants. And so every year I have a percentage that I just say, okay, this is how much I'm going to put into flowers. This is how much I'm going to put into garlic. This is how much I'm going to put into strawberries. And I just stick to that percentage, rough, right? And then so, that percentage here is the thing. A few years ago, $600, let's say I made the same amount of money over 3 years, but the price of things went up, bought less and less strawberries. But the beautiful thing is I do it every year, so I don't have less and less strawberries. And at some point, I'm going to clone my own. And I don't buy the strawberries from anybody else. I'm doing it the hard way now because I don't have the infrastructure. Valhalla doesn't yet have the full infrastructure of a nursery, but that's also going to happen. So that's where this game starts to change, and I think this game and the NFT side of us doing strawberries or blueberries or all that kind of stuff, right now we're buying them from, ancestral farmers and local sources. But my ultimate goal would be that we're buying them from the production that came out of our nursery. So if I go into the nursery and I say, okay, we planted 500 blueberries, 200 of them survived, whatever, 300 died. We have 200. Great. Let's sell those. Let's get 200 investors or 100 investors. I'll pay the rest of them myself. And then let's put that in the ground. So I think that's where this like NFT thing pays a direct farmer at Valhalla too. That's where this is the next level. And that's why a big focus of mine this year was on the North Field specifically was irrigation, because we need better irrigation over time, but also the nursery and all things power, water, temperature control, let's say, or automation of a nursery. That's kind of in farming, that's kind of my next challenge for me.
The nursery that I got plants from, the guy didn't do it inside.
Sure. I'm not saying it has to be inside. I'm just trying to say that I think having some interior space and some watering systems would help and would accelerate the process. But yes, I agree that we can clone outside. I mean, we can go up to our blueberry bushes, take snippings, put it in honey or whatever, throw it into pots and see what works. And if they survive a year, we plant them. You know, if they survive a year in a pot, and if we can give it the best possible conditions in the winter to keep it a little warmer or do certain things by putting it in a nursery, even if it still freezes, but it doesn't freeze as much as it would if it were out in the middle of a field, that could
they
be
survive
valuable.
-50.
Sure, but blueberries is one thing, you know, other trees or other types of trees might be another, but the idea of
it's
being...
exciting for all farmers.
Yes.
At Valhalla. It's exciting for anyone who just comes up with any random ideas. He wants to do bunnies.
Yeah, sure.
Bunny NFT.
Well, over time, once the concept is proven and it's working at scale where people are trading NFTs, or what if somebody helps us? What if somebody was a volunteer and they helped all season long and I just gave them an investment in, I was like, hey man, you helped us plant 100 rows of garlic. Here's 5 of them because thank you. You know what I mean? Like, I think now that has little to no cost to us other than the minting of the NFT and just the giving away. And sure, it could have been garlic that I sold, but now all of a sudden I can pay in something that they can cash out on, or that they can keep and invest in. And like that value again enables you to do less with more.
And it's not taxable.
Or more with less, sorry.
If you pay someone in rows of garlic, it's not taxable.
Also,
and that's an important thing.
It's a huge thing.
If someone came and worked for me and I paid them in meat, paid them in pig's meat, how's the government getting a cut of that?
Well, I mean, technically, legally, you're supposed to report it. You're supposed to report gifts over a certain value.
Oh, so this
but nobody reports what their grandmother
gave them. As a market value.
Yeah, but nobody reports what their grandmother gave them, and then how do you track it?
Exactly.
How am I supposed to know that this
happened? And with
happened?
the price of meat right now, you think I'm going to report anything?
That's the whole point.
Oh, you guys have it at how much? $300 for a pound? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Tax me.
So how would you find out that thing happened? And the answer is you can't, or it'd be hard to, and that has value.
It's very important as they make the money harder to play with because of inflation that we get means for bartering.
Well,
we get our hands on bartering
inflation
items.
is one thing. What about digital currencies?
It doesn't matter.
What I'm trying to say is
it doesn't matter because you want something, and these are just
what I'm trying to say is in
the
the future, 100% of your transactions will be tracked by the government because they will literally be the bank, and they will see every transaction that happens.
But that money, you can't eat that money.
That's what I'm trying.
You can't wear that money. You can't put the money on your feet and walk around.
But that's exactly what I'm
so
trying to say.
Just buys you
so you'd want to be able to barter things that are off chain,
and then things that you want.
Yes,
things that
and things that can be in a private chain as well,
of course,
or a private marketplace, or in a private club. Hence the farm. That's where this is.
And
going.
if anyone's listening, you could also get an NFT by sweat equity too. It's not just by money, right? Like you were saying before. If you plant 100 rows of garlic, you get.
I'm currently doing that. I'm currently, there's a guy who was at the farm today. I think Brantley.
Who's that?
Yeah, exactly. I said, help me make the rows. You have a lot of experience doing this. So you were doing it in the was
Caribbean.
In the Caribbean. In
play it safe, Caribbean.
Yeah, and then. So he was doing it there, and so he has a lot of knowledge, and he clearly understands like fertilization and like, oh, this is lacking nitrogen, let's add this or do that. Like a really, really talented person. So I said, hey, one of the stresses that I have every year is making garden beds, and I'm just not that great at it. I'm not the guy who's the best BCS, push mower type tractor driver. So help us make it, and for every row you make, I'll give you one. So if you make 2 rows, I'll give you 1. This is what I offered him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, game changer. I don't care about how much money I'm making off garlic. I care about restoring the soil so that future farmers, including myself, can have the best possible soil.
And Grantley came up north and wants a chance at growing, and there's your chance.
And he knows nothing about, he doesn't know, so he needs our expertise. He doesn't have the equipment, he doesn't have land, he needs that.
I'm
so
sure
we're
any
providing
farmer
all of those things.
listening who got going, you make 1 row with our BCS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. On our land, our BCS, our money, 100% of everything that we do, you make 1 row, I give you a row.
Yeah, wow.
There is no better deal than that, and it's untaxable, or at least not, he doesn't have to report it, and I don't have to report anything because I just gave away something. Gifting, from my perspective, has no tax, but I gave you value, and you gave me value too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not tracked anywhere. Allegedly.
And eventually those will be the garden plot NFTs.
Yes.
So they're all working
They're all working their way to another layer of value,
investment.
Of investment and value, yes.
Yeah. So what's the next one you think is going to be on the market?
I think the next one on the market, there's some basic infrastructure ones. Think, okay.
The bar?
It's not a bar, it's a washing station.
The washing station NFT.
So I believe
legal
that there
purposes.
are some infrastructural pieces, kind of like the little market stand that you built for Bianca.
Okay.
That would be one that I would see.
Did you know a woman asked me on Facebook Marketplace today if she could live with her toddler in the tiny house?
No way.
And not at Valhalla.
Yeah, just wants to buy the tiny house.
And asking if it's feasible to live with a toddler in there.
My God.
That's the sign of the times right now.
And what'd you say?
I told her, what did I tell her? Do you have land? And then she said, yeah. And then I left her on red because I'm shook right now.
That's wild.
I took off the bed today.
Single mom, do you know?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine living in there with a toddler. You've seen it? My God.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, not the best idea. Not where I'd want to raise my kid in that way, I'll say. But
it is worth $10,000 to $15,000. Canada's smallest tiny house. Google it. I'll accept your down payment at any time.
Yeah, NFT contract.
NFT.
Yeah, wow. No, I mean, look, I think the next ones would be things that we have in abundance as well. So I could see a chicken NFT, I could see a bee NFT or beehive NFT, I could see strawberries, I could see blueberries, and I could see fruit trees. Those are farm-based ones.
I would like to see NFtree.
Yes, NFtree, yes.
I like to see NFtree, maple tree.
Would you extend that to fruit trees?
Eventually, after.
I'm curious why you think we should do, let's say, a maple tree versus a fruit tree first.
Do you want to know my real answer?
I know your real answer.
Okay, so am I supposed to say it?
Yeah, go for it.
Because they're already planted.
there. Yeah, they're already there. Yeah.
They're already there. And by investing, we also get into that property of the back by clearing, and that has huge value because what's going to happen is A-frame NFT.
Yes, sure.
Barrel NFT.
Well, so the fastest way for us to
those
build,
rent at $200 a month.
The fastest
so
way.
Make some
so
money.
here's what I'll say: the fastest way for us to go into that forest and do anything in that forest would be maple trees.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I think like NFtree is a great name. Everything, it sequences the carbon. We have the jokes. We have all the marketing.
Yeah.
Plus, we already have the visual.
Yes.
On the north side.
Sure.
As soon as
it
starts,
already exists.
The visuals already exist.
It already exists, but
and that's why I would go for that one over the fruit tree, because we have fruit trees, but they're not as fruit bearing, and the visual is not as powerful as a field of wood being chopped.
Sure.
And houses being built with beams. And
sure. There's a lot of things that can
and
happen.
Live edges. We have the 100%. Whole image.
Yeah, I mean, I think the image is there and the marketing of it is there. I think the difficulty level is higher.
But if you were to get investments, you would buy things like a painter and
exactly. I'd buy things that allow us to clean up the forest of all the dead trees that are that are there on the property.
And I think
I'd find clearings and plant more trees.
What it builds, the tiny house, decks.
Yes,
and
sure.
things like that,
so
showing
lots of value outside of as we clear the forest.
And it expands the buildings. That has more value than the fruit trees.
Yeah.
Fruit trees have a value too, but this, if they invest in this early,
So I'll explain
the
I'll explain the upside and I'll explain the downside.
let's say it makes the mill, not just Sugar Shack. Sugar Shack is a
very interesting thing.
Sugar Shack is if you stay in, you get in, you stay in. We're
Yeah.
going to Sugar Shack
Yeah.
long term.
Yes.
With
Well, that's
with the
yes.
bistro.
Yes, exactly.
And you want to make that sugar money.
you know.
But at first, there's the mill. There's mill.
I agree that there's a mill NFT, and I agree that there's a metal NFT. Like, these are all things. See, here's the thing you have to understand.
And
Everything that we're talking about is actually naturally happening at Valhalla already. That's the point, right?
And
Like,
if people start coming to us looking for 8x8s, logs,
Sure.
and we sold them all out, do you think that we stop there? Or do we start sourcing from buddies that are further south
well, sure.
or further north?
Sure.
And they come to us and drop it
It's a
in our parking
marketplace.
lot. And we're in a marketplace.
So the
we're just
downside
the
the downside of that is that's not quote unquote farming. On maples, it is. On
okay.
birch trees, it's not. So why I would want to do fruit trees or berry bushes or things first is that it scales the farm component, which scales the legal, let's say the flexibility that we have to do everything else that you're talking
But
about.
I think if you sell it as a Sugar Shack idea,
Yes.
then you will have no.
That's
legal-
why I would start with maple. That's why I said I would start with maple.
Yeah, but I would like to call it NFTree. But inside NFTrees, you're gonna
Yes.
eventually
Is it
get the
access
fruit trees.
to as access. Sure. Yes.
Once like part
Yeah.
of the umbrella of that. I would keep the berries out of
Sure.
it for now.
But so then the question becomes, I'd consider
I
keeping
would
the berries
just
out of it.
what I would do if I were you is there's garlic NFT, strawberry NFT,
Yes, sure.
and for the same reasons.
Yes.
Exactly
Because
same
they duplicate very easily and it allows us a lot of time to plant them. There's
and you
a lot
already
of different things.
pre-invested, so you'll be selling your.
I'd be selling access
NFTs.
to our exactly. I'd be selling access to existing plants that are already producing, that are already doing certain things.
You already
And then
invested.
and
You're
then I
asking
take-
people, do you want to join in on my
Do you want to
investment?
join in the investment, and then I take the money and I put it back in, even if I only put 80% of it back in, and 20% goes to paying for more labor, more support, more other things on the farm that make the infrastructure.
And they don't have
of
to
this
buy
work.
in at the beginning. It's not stage one.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with it already being there. It's actually a better investment. It's like, hey, I already did the thing. Do you want to
Yes.
join in?
I agree that we should try things that we already have in abundance. Hence why I would go with berry bushes
And then wait
that
for,
are already in abundance.
And
Meaning
then
blueberry
wait-
would not be the bush I would go with. I'd go with
let's
blackberry
get
or
it.
raspberry.
Let's get the blueberry going,
To a certain degree,
and
yes.
then we do it.
Yes.
And it incentivizes people to get to that level. Like there's the pigs, but figure out the financials of the pigs, how
Yes.
to move them, what you like moving them for. Then we can pre-sale.
Yes.
But
Well,
let's
this
not
is-
pre-sale when you undersell. That's dumb.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know my take on that.
Then you
100%.
sold the investment,
100%.
and now
people
they're-
are willing to buy the entire meat. And this happens already with cows a lot and
For
different
sure,
things.
for
People
sure,
buy an
for
entire
sure.
cow or half a cow with someone, and
Oh, yeah,
then they
there's
get
auctions. There's auctions for.
Well, there's
for
auctions
them
is
to
one
stick
thing.
their cow dick into a cow vagina.
Sure, just because they want to breed, they
Want to breed?
kind of
Maybe,
put a
maybe
selective
tens
selective
of thousands
breeding.
of dollars.
Sure, so that's a thing, but we're not going in that.
We are going in that direction.
Well, I don't think we want
For
to.
sure, we are.
Really, you really think
Our
we're gonna go into
pigs
the
are already
breeding side
some of
things?
the happiest pigs in the nicest conditions. If you
Sure.
keep some alive, the ones that you see as viable, someone else will buy it for breeding stock because they're
Sure.
going to see it as big, happy. You're able to control it. Watch this.
Yeah.
Come here. It's like a Pokemon that I can actually give to you and you'll listen to you.
Sure.
I don't want the wild, crazy idiot.
Yes. No, I understand that. I mean,
Because
I
they
think they're-
believe also that the docileness will be transferred through the livestock, that the next one will be more docile. But it's
Yeah.
not actually how it works. It's
how they were treated.
it's
how
how
they
they're
were treated
treated
in their
is
life.
habitual.
Yes,
The how we're treating is habitual.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, I do think that goes in that direction.
Maybe.
And that's a big NFT. If you want
Yeah, you want
The blue ribbon?
the king. You want
the blue ribbon, you want
yeah,
the blue
you
ribbon
want the
one,
blue ribbon. Yeah.
who sold for, not for meat, he sold for livestock, breeding,
Yeah,
man,
that's fair.
and cows and stuff like that. But
Yeah, I never went to the breeding. I mean, I'm
well, he's lucky
the
enough
animal-
that
the
he got
animal
a
thing,
female.
the
He
way-
has a female, so next year he has
makes
to go
sense.
to the breeding
sure
because all his males are castrated.
Here's the way I say it. I always saw the animals as part of the ecosystem that are fertilizing the other elements of the farm.
Yeah.
Less the, I don't want to be an industrial. I don't want to say industrial because we're never going to be industrial, but I don't want to like over stock any livestock of any kind.
But you're not. You have
you have 200 chickens, 100 chickens or 99 chickens on one side and 99 on the other side.
You would have like a male pig.
Yeah.
Another one that's castrated.
Sure.
There's only one who's breeding, and you're culling their babies or selling their babies.
Yeah.
It's very similar to what you're doing right now.
Yeah,
you have 7, but you're not going to have 7 at the end.
Yeah.
And then next year they would make babies.
Yeah.
And this way you're not buying any more pigs. That's all.
Yeah.
And by actually picking and trading with other farmers your genetics, people will buy our genetics.
No, I agree.
Big
This
money.
is back to what we said earlier about the nursery. It's like right now we're currently buying from other nurseries because they have a better setup
And
than
we will
do.
have our
but
own
eventually
blueberry
we'll have
one
our
day.
own production.
And it will be Northland who mixed with Patriot,
Patriot
you know what I mean?
and whatever,
Or with
exactly.
High Bush.
Yeah,
And
sure.
it will be our
We'll
own.
cross different breeds of different things. Absolutely.
Same thing for garlic.
100%.
So it's open for the pigs, and I think by allowing someone to invest in it, it would really help. It would help keep the pig alive for a couple of years. You know what I mean?
Yes, it just
And
requires
it's always that
the
one person
physical,
who's bothering.
It's the hard. Yeah, well, sure. There's always the vegan who's like, "You bastards."
And it's like, and you can.
Yeah, sure.
He will never be killed.
He'll never be killed.
He's the blue ribbon.
You
He'll
buy
never be
the buy the pig today. Keep him. Pay for him to be alive. I have no problem keeping a pig alive. Again, he's part of the infrastructure that we need to be able to fertilize the soil and to clear out weeds in certain areas. That's why I was interested in the pigs, because I wanted to clear out a particular area.
And what's cooler than to have a pig that's on his 3rd mission? You know, it's
Yeah,
third
exactly.
year.
But the hard part about
seasoned
the
vet.
hard part about not essentially butchering your livestock is now because of winters and different things, you have to have somebody on site all the time in winter, which we do. But at the exact same time, you have to have a heated place. You have to have all these like infrastructural things that we currently don't have, and that's what's difficult.
I'm
about
not sure
it.
if you knew this, but pigs, they live outside.
In the winter,
Yes.
without heat.
Well, these ones have hair, so they're almost like a boar.
Yeah, but not
No,
really. I mean, you would need to
build them.
create a
If
heated
you build
space.
them the 3, have you ever seen a deer?
Sure, I
It's
mean,
out there, bro. And it has like no hair. It has like
sure,
little
but I mean,
hairs.
at what point is that is that brutal to have a pig that lives outside?
Well, I know that sheep can totally live outside. Certain
I mean,
cows
they can, but is
certain
that
Highland
reasonable?
cow?
Is that reasonable? I just don't. I
They're
actually
built
don't
for
know.
it.
I truly
no, they're built
don't
for
know.
it. They're built for it. But the one who has been taken inside where he loses his hair and becomes pink because he's domesticated, he will not make it.
Oh, 100%. But
you left yours outside. They have hair. They're
Yes,
growing
they're-
hair.
they're-
As it gets colder, they grow more hair.
well, they also grew more fat throughout the season,
And they're going to have more fat.
and as long as they keep eating, they'll stay fat, quote unquote. So yes,
And
sure.
and also
I just don't know-
togetherness, right? Togetherness when they're multiple and they get together in a group, they produce heat. Massive amounts of heat.
Sure. Okay. So I understand. So it's like the question is, how much of a group do we still need a building nonetheless? Like I don't want them out there in a storm where it's -30. You know what I mean? Like I feel
I
like
think
you
they're going to
wanna-
come in the greenhouse. You know what I mean?
Well, sure, but so then you have to build a place where they're going to go, and then they're going to terrorize. Essentially, and what I mean by terrorize is they're going to eat everything that's in there. Yeah, exactly. So in the
But there might only be 2 or 3 at this point. A little bit more manageable.
I'm not saying we shouldn't breed our own pigs. I'm not saying that at all. I do believe that there's some amount that every once in a while, even just based on age, will be eaten at some point. I think it's a cycle of life. But the capacity, I guess I just don't know what the ethics are of having a pig that would be outside.
It's saying here, I'm looking it up, and apparently they can't be too cold.
Yeah.
When the water starts freezing, you got to bring them inside.
Yeah.
All pigs?
Pretty much.
We have
So-
to figure out what type of pig we got.
Well, sure. And then the other thing is, what he just said makes a lot of sense, though. If they're outside and there's no, the water's frozen now, how are you, what are you doing with their feed? Where are you keeping their feed that's also still warm, that's not outside?
They're
Like,
digging the snow. They're
But,
digging
but it does say they can survive most cold weather, though.
yeah, but I mean,
Just
Canadian,
most.
yeah, sure.
Maybe not, yeah.
But that's what I
Clearly not
honestly
leaving
don't
them.
know. Yeah.
They're not even outside like right now without shelter, so.
Well, they have like a little cabin that we built, and a nice space. But they have access to some amount of shelter, and they have access to.
I would believe that they would get better shelter than the chickens.
I mean, I would. Yeah, sure. I mean, the chickens had a kind of a greenhouse, basically.
I think it would be that would like
The
hay
greenhouse.
bales.
The greenhouse was warm, in and of itself, just without heating on it, and then we had heating in there too. But I
More or
would
less, I think
imagine
it's
I would
gonna-
want to do something similar for pigs.
Yeah.
But
And
it would have to have way more ventilation. Like there would be so many other
The point
challenges.
of it was that we had to figure out these challenges before we released the NFT for it. So
yes,
that
100%. That's why
I wouldn't enticing.
I wouldn't do an NFT for something that's my first year doing.
Mm-hmm.
But garlic, this is our 5th year. It made sense. It was growing. Everything was doing well. We were constantly doubling. That's when the NFT comes out. Strawberries, same thing. Strawberries are doing well. Chickens and chicken for eggs.
Yeah.
That we've done well. So things like that I would do because I know reasonably the cost of work, the energy, who's taking care of it. Honey is another one that I would also do.
Yeah. Honey? What the hell's that noise?
I don't know.
Okay, honey.
Yeah.
But NFTrees is such a good name and branding that I would release that one.
I'm not saying other. I
also
totally
because it's
agree.
open-ended. It's up to you when you say that it's sold out.
Yes, because we can. Well, to some degree, there's a limit of our size of farm, but that we're nowhere near that limit at this moment. So yes, I agree. But that's why I'd want to do something that also had like short bursts where there was not 1,000 people who joined at the same time. I'd rather have like kind of like what I did with garlic. It really went to 3 people. That made more sense to me because I only have to explain it and kind of like manage a portfolio, let's say, if you want to see it that way, as for 3 people, and I can kind of communicate with those people.
But it could be the same thing with NFTrees in the sense that how much do they want to budget?
Yeah. I don't want to have like 1,000 people all individually owning trees and then having to deal with 1,000 people every time yet. I think that's going to happen, but I don't. I'd rather have slightly bigger investors today.
As long as you can buy back, as long as there's someone, don't blow through all your demand because as long as there's someone willing to buy, you can always take it from someone who's willing to sell.
That's exactly right. So my thing would be having a strong sense of supply and demand by preceding the idea, kind of like we're doing right now, and then seeing what the demand is. Because if everyone's commenting on this video and saying, I'm really interested in the NFT, or I'm really interested in the strawberry one, or I'm really interested in this thing, I think that inherently has a very interesting amount of value. Well, and by the way, none of what we spoke about talks about the value of also you're making an art piece out of it. You're actually giving that away. I mean, there's value to the art. There's value to other things too. I mean, look, hey, if you saw value in a pet rock NFT, well, then you'd see value in the garlic NFT.
Well, I think the real value in the NFT, if it's maple, is that there's a sugar shack at the end. I can have a piece of a sugar shack. We all know that a sugar shack makes money.
So this is back to
what's in it for me? What's in it for me in my Tinder profile?
So that goes back to, and this is where this is why I would have a hard time doing the maple right now, is I don't know all the costs or all the setup components of a sugar shack. I know the rough.
Fucking retarded. You sell eggs and syrup that you source from outside. You think sugar shacks are making those eggs?
No, of course
they couldn't possibly make them fast enough. The bacon,
no,
the pig's ears.
But you're allowed to build a cabin in the woods for the sugar shack to just even have a space to boil and do certain things.
To pretend, yes. Yeah, I'm doing it over here. Yeah, it's all the syrup's here.
Yeah, and then it's actually going to a bigger facility and it's doing whatever.
Some fucking schlub up north is making it all, and he sent it to us where we sell it for real.
Well, that's what a lot of sugar shacks actually do.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's so simple. The math is we're closer to saying,
but you do actually have to tap X number of trees.
Sure, we will.
You do actually and I would actually produce maple syrup. 100%. But the I agree that,
or we just sell,
given our location,
we sell maple water.
Well, given our location, there is only a certain amount of maple syrup. Like we would have more demand for maple syrup than we would ever be able to produce. Period.
We're closer to St. Well. We would clean up. Everyone who starts driving out there.
Did you know that like giant Canadian, there's massive warehouses filled with maple syrup because they're part of the mafia of maple?
Well, because you got to keep it $10.
Which is so crazy.
I keep it $10 for a liter.
Yeah, which is so crazy.
And we get in on that game.
And the biggest heist in Canadian history was maple syrup barrels.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I saw this on what was it that show on Netflix? It was
Masterminds, I think, or Netflix. No, on Netflix. Oh fuck, I don't remember.
They stole millions.
Millions of maple syrup in one heist.
17 million, I think, dollars was the biggest heist in Canadian history, and it was maple syrup.
Very Canadian.
That is the most Canadian story of all time. That's hilarious, right?
So I think that once you dial it in, the NFTrees and how it could lead to a maple shack, there's The math is quite simple. We tap the trees, we tell them we're doing the syrup, and then we
so
unload unlimited syrup.
Here's another one that I also did the math for. Solar panels.
Oh.
Solar panels.
Oh, that's a good one.
Energy production. It's a fascinating one because I'm looking at the math every day. I mean, we installed 20 solar panels on the south side. It lowered our, at least summer performance, less than 50% in certain cases.
Do we get a paradox of choice if you release too many NFTs?
Well, I would never release. This would be a slow drip type scenario.
I would do NFTree. It's better unless you have a great name for the solar. You have a great. You don't. You're fishing.
Not yet. I don't have a solar one.
So NFTree is until you can come up with a better one hit.
I admit that NFTree is a phenomenal.
It hits and then it's like
catchy.
And like what is this about? Sugar Shack. Wait, what? That's exactly.
You want in on the ground.
Give me $500 right now and one day.
Yeah. But
one day.
Yeah. Well, back to we have to have an actual plan for how that would work.
Well, I think when you come to Valhalla, you start to see how this could be a Sugar Shack.
The tables are there. Without a doubt.
The kitchen is there.
You're missing
the space is being left for the.
My God, you put a house there, it's done.
I know, but the space is being left for a transformation center and a kind of agro-tourism or a way that people could come to the farm and actually buy products.
Isn't Sugar Shack basically like agro-tourism?
So it is. So this is back to the fine line. You're producing a product that people are coming to your farm to buy. Is that agro-tourism? No, that's the sale. Well,
okay, they actually say it's the sale of the product itself.
I mean, it's
Sugar
shacking. Well, no, the restaurant is agro-tourism.
Okay.
The selling of maple syrup that you grew on your farm is not.
But
this is back to, but it's a way into agro-tourism. That's the whole point.
Okay, so like that, when we went, that other shop on the side where he was selling
that's their fruit stand, quote unquote.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the restaurant, the thing that we actually gave money to,
is called
tourism.
Is ecotourism or agro-tourism.
Okay. Well, that's what I think people flock for. They flock for food and that kind of thing. So that's what we would always.
The key thing is that we have to have some amount of minimum production for that to work. Hence why the Sugar Shack also had an orchard. That's why they have orchards. It's because if all their money is coming from agro-tourism, they won't get the permit.
I think that's just to operate in fall, so you can say it's cider time.
That's another way of seeing it.
At some point, it's not maple syrup anymore in October, buddy.
It's also a way of having a double production.
Think about when
meaning
they run
you
the
have
pumpkins.
you have a surge in early spring and you have a surge in fall.
Yeah,
and so that's the way I see it is we're gonna have vine NFTs at some point. When I say vines, I mean grapes.
Of course.
A vineyard. We will have the orchard, and then the orchard leads to the maple. And that's if you look at the way I've designed the field so far,
I would do it. I would do the actual backwards of what the fuck you just said. I would do
you would do it in the opposite
maple,
order. You would do it in the opposite order. In the opposite order.
We have the apple trees, but we put more, and then we would say we have apple, and we have no real grapes to speak of in terms of lines.
Yeah.
So we would start, and then we would.
I agree. I'm not saying that we wouldn't do it in the opposite order, but the way the field goes down is you're physically passing eventually a transformation center, kind of an eco or agro-tourism kind of section at the front where the parking lot is and all that stuff. Then you pass market gardens on both sides. You have greenhouses on one side, market gardens on the other, and eventually market gardens on both sides. Then you get to some animal areas. Then you get to vineyard, then you get to orchard, then you get to forest. And forest would be maple. More maple.
With the Sugar Shack.
Not only maple.
Yeah, the thing is that the Sugar Shack is the candy here, is the sweet.
Sugar Shack.
Yes, but the Sugar Shack...
How do you sell that in the NFT?
I would have to kind of do the math, but the first thing I would look at is what is the minimum amount of trees that you would need, and then can we identify a certain number of those trees already in the forest? That's the first thing I would do.
Okay, so it's basically what is the investment to become a Sugar Shack?
What would it take us to get there?
And then
what is the legal? What is the legal?
Those are the NFTs.
That's the NFTs.
You also need a fiddle player.
You
Legally.
we got.
There'll be an NFT that'll cover that. One extra NFT to cover the cost of that.
Well, here's another. Actually, you brought up something that gives you an idea. Part of how Valhalla works is that there's a kind of a loyalty element to it. Right? So if you where if you were the person who farmed a particular area and they were supporting in a particular thing, like, for example, we've been talking about the pigs. Sebastian Asaf has taken care of the pigs and really supporting on the pig front. If that were to grow, and if we choose to continue to do that, then he would have the right to those things. But I also see that there would be rights to, you just mentioned the fiddle player, but what about the right to a specific service? What about the right to, like, hey, I'm the hairdresser or the barber of the community, and there will be no other barber unless I give up my position.
Of course. What do you think I got the soda machine?
Well, so there's a land grab, let's say, that will happen at Valhalla. That is already naturally happening through the politics of Valhalla.
Of course.
But this will be the best way to honor that thing. And have contractors say, hey, we're not going to compete with you, and we will let nobody else compete with you in this category. For a specific thing. So that could be the photographer, that could be, a bunch of different things. Now, there would be exceptions in the sense that, like, hey, you have the photography NFT. Every time we hire a photographer, we hire you. But if you can't show up that day, then we can go to the next person. Stuff like that, right? Or if you stop doing the production, then obviously we can.
But that's mostly...
those are politics. Those are like details of the contract.
Yeah, it's internal HR for Valhalla.
It's almost like it's a internal Valhalla politics thing rather than a whatever. But it's a cool way of allowing people. Here's the best way to say it. Valhalla is an incubator not only for plants, but also for businesses, for entrepreneurship, and for people being able to get into those businesses in what I would consider to be the cheapest, best possible way, where the market or the demand is already existent. That's the way I see it. The demand is there. We've already built the brand. We've built the reputation. We've had thousands of people come to the farm and continue to come to the farm. So all you need to do is fill the part of the demand that is not being filled, or create the supply, and then you're winning.
Okay, so there's a demand for sugar shacks. I think we should meet that.
I agree that we should do.
We sell it this year, and next year we start.
I agree that we should do that.
Farm to table dinner style.
Now
sugar shack, where we already had the money to pay.
What I was starting to do was trying to figure out how I stack certain things. So I've been researching, like, for example, would having the strawberries being under solar panels that are out on a field that are just above a certain height, could I have strawberry fields that are underneath that shade? And then you have a dual use of the land. You have.
Then how are they gonna? But they need a little bit of sun to make
some sun. But you're not putting them glued next to one another, and you're creating some spacing. But strawberries do like some amount of shade.
You're totally off topic.
Well,
NFTrees, bro. You couldn't come up with a solar panel name. It's done.
Sure.
It's in the rubbish bin.
Yeah.
If you can come up with a proper name, NFTrees.
Sure.
I think if we sell NFTrees to Sugar Shack, this time next year, we have the money to tap the trees and to start a farm to table.
the first step to that, then, like, for me to feel confident in doing that, at least on the Sugar Shack side of things, is I'm gonna, and I already have the information somewhere. I just have to reference it. But what is the minimum number of trees that we need, and how many do we have?
But let's go for it. Because we have an actual amazing plan. If we find out how many,
have to be able to track that. And if we could track that, then the other thing is, then we know how many NFTs we have today.
I can find the tappable trees.
Yes.
You have to tell me how many trees we need to tap.
Yes.
We need to find out how many blue wire we need.
The line, the whatever, not glycol line, but
and then how we're tapping them in sequence so that they flow down to each other to a spot, maybe a little shacky.
Yeah.
And that'd be cool because we've been collecting like amateurs this whole time, and if we came at it this year with a full system that goes to a house that we're picking up with the 4x4.
It would take time to build these things, but inherently this would be a longer term play.
It's just to open up the restaurant. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying otherwise.
And I would ideally give it. This is the plan. Whatever the government's like, fuck you. The water, the maple water is free at the Sugar Shack.
Mm-hmm.
That's we don't boil it. Mm-hmm. Just drink maple water with your meal, unlimited. And that's what we do.
So we don't have to have the massive production facility. We have to produce some.
Well, you know that it won Water of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Maple water won Water of the Year 2020 or 2019. It was just maple water in a
it's a healthy water. The hell they want?
in like one of those
better
milk,
than Gatorade.
milk type paper.
Or Prime.
It's better than Prime. This is better than Prime.
hear
This
that,
is
Logan Paul?
primal.
Do you hear that, Logan Paul? This is better than Prime. It's primal. I like that. That would be the tagline.
It's how many trees do we need
Better
to
than
tap?
Prime. It's
we
primal.
tap that tree. We give that drink away for free, but we sell you that maple syrup and those pig's ears. And let me tell you, it ain't cheap, my guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also think that the pigs are a part of the support of the managing of the forest.
And petting zoo.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to the Sugar Shack. Why I keep bringing back the Sugar Shack is because it's incredible for farms in the early months of the year where nothing's going on. It's mud everywhere.
So there's
and
two things that
they have a license to print money.
Well, there's two things that I think make us enable that to happen. I agree, Sugar Shack is one of them. And then the second one is a nursery. It's the ability to sell plants that are now budding that people buy in spring.
Spring, yes. Another
spring
thing.
push, which is super valuable.
Well, I like the crabapple idea. I like having a field of crab apples where people come and take their little pictures.
I think exactly. Think what they do in Vancouver or whatever when the cherry blossoms blossom.
And that'll be an NFT one day too. Trust that Valhalla will find the little space on the calendar that hasn't been filled in yet, and we'll fill it in with some sort of gimmick.
Oh, 100%.
But
you
number
want to come
one-
and take pictures in our pumpkin cats? That's the thing. Dude, I saw this. Where was it? An MTL blog? What was it? Hotel in Montreal charging for pictures.
Oh,
Was it a
because they're just
hotel?
going and not even paying?
Charging for pictures, MTL blog. Was it MTL blog?
Well, this is their ad on MTL Blog. They paid MTL Blog, and now everyone knows. Sponsored.
Let me see.
This is my chance to say MTL Blog is by far one of the worst
It's awful.
corporations,
It's
companies that have
fucking-
ever started in Montreal. You guys shat the bed, and that's probably because it was sold.
It was sold.
It's also because their articles are just fucking shit. Never mind what the company.
Whoever bought it, it was to run it in the ground, basasically.
Anyway,
'Cause
can't
you
find-
did.
I can't find
Good luck with that one.
The article that I read. I literally saw it this morning. But the point is that people pay to go take pictures of places because that's what they do. I mean,
Of course.
people buy trips to Greece so they can go take this one picture at the top of the mountain that looks onto the.
What I
sea
love
on the
about
coast.
Sugar Shack is not only do you go for the love of the sugar, but people go for the pictures.
Well, they go for the pictures. They go for the community. They go for
And show people, you know what? I did the thing. I did the ritual. I went to the Sugar Shack.
Mm-hmm.
And I might even go again next week with the other side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big photo op.
Yeah.
I mean, the snow just melted. You could be there in your checkered dress. It's a big deal. And you could be part of it by giving me $500 right now for a NFTree.
I think we end this.
$500 too cheap? Is it too cheap? Okay, we're gonna have to work on our pricing, and we're gonna come back to you. It might be a little bit more expensive.
All right, guys. See you in the next episode.